You go on a first date with someone. What habit or characteristic is a deal breaker? Constantly talking about their exes. I feel like there's a balance needed. For Miso and I, we were upfront about weird issues we brought with us from past relationships. Everyone has baggage. You gotta be able to talk about it so your new boo won't be confused when something unimportant to them stresses you out completely. I know there are things that would have really annoyed me because we talked about our past relationship issues. It was a lot easier to grow past it and be better with one another. Spending the whole time on their phone. Had a first date with a guy once. At some point I asked him to look up something on his phone. I forget exactly what the context was, and he told me he had intentionally left his phone in his car for our date. Color me impressed. We dated for nearly a year. I do this when I go to parties or social events. I'll leave my phone in the car intentionally so I can be present and engage with people. It's not like I'm glued to my phone, but I notice I will unconsciously look at my phone for a minute or check messages. It's a terrible habit. I'm sure there's a middle ground, but leaving my phone in the car seems to work just fine. Modified version. They always seem to be on their phone, but never reply to you. I had that once. This girl I was seeing would always be texting on her phone, but would like hours to reply to my messages. Also, their phone doesn't stop making noises, even when they are not glued to it. Nobody needs to hear that ping every time you get a Facebook message or an Instagram like. My phone is always on silent. I'll see it when I see it. They talk over me and spend the conversation giving me unsolicited advice about how to live my life. Edit. I feel like I need to specify that I was thinking of one specific first date that did not become a second date when I answered this. Lol. The guy didn't like that I had dyed my hair blonde at the bottom and spent a lot of the date telling me about the dangers of bleaching your hair and how I should learn to make better choices. I just wanted to have a good dinner, man. Terrible haiku, but what did I expect? I was once set up to go on a blind date with this girl. We were given each other's email addresses, and so I hit her up. We exchanged a few pleasantries, then set up a date/time to finally meet. The day of, I get an email from her in the morning with an attachment. I open up the attachment and there is a questionnaire with like 25 to 30 questions on it. She requested I kindly fill out the questionnaire before we meet. I quickly reviewed the questions before sending her a reply saying that it's probably best we don't meet. I don't know what characteristic she embodied, but I'd say that was a deal breaker. What kind of questions were they? I don't recall the exact questions, as it was a long time ago, but I do remember some were as innocuous as dog or cat, but others required further explanation like who is your favorite person in the world? What has he/she done to make you like them so much? It was insane. I've had job interviews that were less thorough. It wasn't a date, but I once met up with a friend from college who was exactly like this. I figured after 8 years she grew up and matured a bit. She hadn't. I had my brother call me and fake a family emergency so I could get out early. I hear situations like this a lot on Reddit, but I would argue that the person doing all the talking may see the silent person as a bad date for not having anything to say, forcing them to ramble for the entirety of the date. Not saying you were the bad date, just saying that there are two sides to every coin. I've seen being rude to wait staff a dozen times, and here, are that many people rude to waiters? No. Source, and waiter. I'd say roughly 1/200 people are actually rude, especially without reason. Now I do also believe people are generally more rude to a waitress, but that is my experience. Too much discussion about money. Not a date, but first time meeting my current GF's friends. The one's first question to me was, so what do you do for a living? How much do you make? I've never forgotten it and haven't cared for her since that moment. That actually happened to me once, and it was the first and only time I walked out of a date. I was just finishing university and got drinks with this girl, and her first question was about what I was doing for work and how much I was making. I had used to work 2 part-time jobs before this, but quit both of them when my online business took off. She must have thought I was lying, or it was some rinky-dink thing I was doing, despite me explaining in detail what I did. She then asked in a hostile way if I had any plans for the future with my life, and I told her that I was applying for a few jobs, since it was my final 3 months of school and she cut me off and went, so you have no plans with your future, is basically what you're saying. Thankfully, I had a $50 bill in my pocket, so I reached in and slapped it on the table and just said, "Enjoy the french fries," and walked right out. Lol. I get that a lot of people get nervous and misspeak on first dates, but there is no reason to be rude to someone like this. Doing this also greatly added to my confidence, and it serves as a reminder that no matter how bad a date goes, I'll always walk away completely fine. Hygiene, in general. Edit. Yes, you guys. Lack of hygiene. If all they talk about is how bad all their exes are, if all your exes are psycho, the chances are the problem is you. If you meet an asshole in the morning, you met an asshole. If you meet assholes all day, you're the asshole. Relon Givens. Lying about their appearance. Very specific app example, guess which one? But you see their pictures, they look nice, and then they are different in person. What's the point as a rule? If they have dog ears, a butterfly halo, or are puking a rainbow, what you see isn't what you'll get. There are so many Tinder profiles where girls will have 3 pictures, all selfies, all with dog ears, big cartoony eyes and heavy Snapchat filters. It makes it way too obvious that you're trying to hide something. And even if you're not, then that's weird. Lol. I imagine they think you will fall in love over text and then not care that they gained 40 pounds or that the hot person in their photos is their friend. It's an attempt at a bait and switch, but it just sets them up to be hurt. Before I met my GF, my dating profiles were always included the following: an attractive picture of me, a picture of myself standing next to other people for height purposes, a picture where you can absolutely see my face how it is with no sunglasses or some weird facial expression or filter. Why does anyone filter on a dating profile? A joke, not very good looking photo of myself. Went out with a guy from a dating app this past weekend whose profile said he was 6 foot and he was barely 5 feet 6/7 inches. I personally am short, so I'm very fine with shorter men, but it's the blatant lying that made me sure I never wanted to go out with him again. I do know that when I was on dating sites, there were a lot of profiles with crap like "don't message me if you're under 6 feet," seemingly always from girls who were maybe 5 feet 1 on a good day. But I just skipped them, since 5 feet 9 inches cannot pass for 6 feet, and what's the point in lying? I don't hate people who smoke, particularly, but my parents smoked so much that I promised myself to never date someone who smoked. Children. I wish all the best to all the single parents in the world, but I'm not signing up to be a step parent. As a single parent, I respect that you acknowledge this is a deal breaker. I wish people who feel that way would be more upfront. I'm a package deal and that's just not for everybody. Yes, exactly. If I ever needed to remarry for any reason, I would actually be seeking someone that had kids. They would just get what my life is like. 100%. It just makes sense. It's hard enough explaining why I can't do something to my friends that don't have kids and they know my situation completely. I don't want to put my crap on someone else who doesn't understand how much being a single parent limits what I can do. Repeatedly interrupting me when I'm talking, especially when I'm answering a question they asked. It tells me they are not actually engaged in what I'm saying. If they call me exotic, if they make repeated remarks on how beautiful my skin tone is, even worse when they point out that they've never been with anybody of my ethnic heritage, or when they've only dated women of ethnicities with a similar appearance to mine, feels a bit fetishizing. Flat earther believer, anti-vaxxer, rude to staff, tries too hard to look quirky or talks like an in character. Also waterboarding conversationalist. Like you have to torture them to hold a conversation. Here is a great story. First date in college. I drive a truck and live in a city, so spots are tight. This spot is particularly tight. So I say, "This is a tight spot, so watch your door when you open it." Girl, are you telling me how to open my door? Doesn't pay basic attention and slams the door into the other car. I know a girl who asks every guy she goes on a date with what his credit score is. She wants to make sure they're financially stable. Also, she's 23 and doesn't know how to pump gas.